moving on to our second headline for this week, and then we can get into the week 5 stuff. I want to go ahead and look at the rookies. We did a lot of work on the rookies this past offseason, scouted out a ton of guys, a lot of texting back and forth. Go back and look at our our rankings for every single position and the multiple mock drafts we did and the in-depth conversations we had about these certain guys. I want to know 4 weeks through the season, just about a quarter of the way through the season now, who's looking good, who needs improvement, and do you want to see any more of any type of guy? Looking at the rookie specifically. So go ahead and start it out. Who's looking good for you? Again, who needs improvement? You can start negative, start positive, wherever you want to start, Drew. I'm okay with.
I'm going to start again positive. Andrew Phillips. I talked about him earlier this
Yeah.
year. He's been really, really good for the Giants. They got a couple young guys out there that are doing really, really well. Malik Neighbors handed Trayvon Diggs his ass a couple times in that game. Unfortunately, he went out with a concussion, really kind of stopped any hope the Giants had.
Yeah.
Neighbors looks like the truth. He looks like the truth. And this may end up being a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson argument. Maybe not to that level. I'm not saying these guys turn into those guys, but it's like Justin Jefferson is far and away amazing, but Jamar Chase is just, I mean, the most solid, best consolation prize you could ever think of in your life behind him. And it really just the Malik Neighbors, the Roma Dunze, the Marvin Harrison Jr., just a solid batch of wide receivers. And, but really the conversation is about Andrew Phillips. He's just been so good. And the rookie corners have been very topsy-turvy. Matter of fact, the number one rookie I put on my list here was Cooper DeJean. And the Eagles fans are just clamoring at this point to see him. Avonte Maddox has not been good this season. Big surprise to anyone that knows anything about Avonte Maddox. I don't know if it's a Vic Fangio thing, not wanting to play Cooper DeJean, or if he's just not looking as good as we thought he was going to be. Obviously, I had big concerns about what position he was going to play in the NFL before the draft. But yeah, I mean, Andrew Phillips, he's just been out of this world so far.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I left a couple guys off my list because I knew you mentioned some guys previously, and Andrew Phillips was one of those guys you mentioned a little bit last week, so I thought maybe you put him on here. I mentioned Jaden Daniels and how I wanted to kind of go off about him a little bit because he made me eat crow, and I'm going to turn around and I'm gonna tell you all the great things about him now at this point. Now that he's playing as well as he has, for me, how I ordered this personally is I ordered it with 3 guys who look elite, 2 guys who look great, and then 2 guys or 1 guy who has flashes, needs improvement, and 1 guy who just looked bad overall. And for me, Jaden Daniels is part of that group that looks elite. 87 completions on 106 attempts. 87 completions on 106 attempts. 82.1 completion percentage is now the highest for a quarterback in the first 4 games of a season, not just for a rookie, for a season with a minimum of 75 attempts. Highest percentage of any player in 4 game span at that any point in their career since 1950. The Commanders' offense is off to a historic start in terms of the expected points added per game at 16.9. They are the 9th best offense through a season's first 4 weeks since 2002. 42 points against Arizona, 38 against Cincy. The Commanders now have scored 38 points in consecutive games for the first time since 1991, weeks 11 and 12 in that week. And then Washington offense through 4 games has 23 scoring drives, 19 incompletions, and just 4 punts. They are the second team in Super Bowl era with more scoring drives and incomplete passes for their first 4 games, joining the 1973 Rams. And a lot of that has to do with the man himself, Jaden Daniels. Again, I'll admit when I'm wrong. Maybe Drew won't, but I'll admit when I'm wrong. And I'm very glad to admit that Jaden Daniels.
Never wrong.
Jaden Daniels looks great. Christian Watson. Jaden Daniels looks great, and he's playing great. And I want to see guys succeed just like you. So, again, for me in that category, he's a guy that looks elite. And then just one more guy who looks elite out of mine, and then I'll jump back to you. You already mentioned him. Malik Neighbors looks elite. Leads the NFL with 35 receptions, 5 more than Nico Collins, which we raved about earlier in the podcast. Second with 386 yards, tied for third with 3 touchdown receptions as well. Neighbors' 35 receptions is the second highest in a 4-game total to start a career in league history. Puka Nacua, obviously we saw the season that he had last year, raved about him obviously all last year. 39 catching is in his first 4 NFL games and just last year. So his 386 yards is the 8th highest in a 4-game total. He's the first player with two 10 reception and 100-yard games in his first 4 games in a Giants uniform, and he joins Nacua last year as the only player to do 2 in such games in their first 4 contests. So we raved and we saw how much Puka Nacua did and how good he was, especially coming out of nowhere, essentially. Neighbors, we obviously knew about him this entire draft process, and he looks amazing and doing it basically by himself, being targeted 52 times out of the 142 total pass attempts, including one that he threw himself. A 35.9% is the highest in the NFL for that target share by himself on a really bad team. So again, in the category,
maybe the Giants need to go get Devontae.
Yeah, maybe. So
or again, go call up the Panthers and get Deontay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get some help from Malik before he wears down at week 10.
Yeah, because I don't want to see him with constant concussion problems or anything like that. It sucked to see him go down at the end of the game last week, even though he's playing Dallas. It just sucks. You don't want to see stuff like that. Who else is on the list for you on these rookies?
We've done a great job of highlighting a lot of the highest rated rookies in the league. We talked about Ladd already. He's right behind Malik Neighbors, obviously nowhere near the gaudy stats, but the Chargers don't run the ball like that. We talked about Andrew Phillips, TeAndre Sweat, obviously. Brock Bowers, this is the 4th consecutive week I've mentioned him. He's second in receiving yards amongst all tight ends, not rookies, just amongst all tight ends. He's already a top 5, top 7 player in his position, probably. Tight ends are just so weird year in and year out. But I wanted to shout out Mr. Jordan Whittington for the Los Angeles Rams, because this was not a player that we talked about much. Obviously, a 6th or 7th round draft pick. Cooper Kupp goes down, Puka Nacua goes down. You're like, oh, the 49ers are going to smash the Rams. They got no one to throw the ball to. Well, he's been fantastic. And with a rookie class that was highlighted with so many wide receivers, poor Xavier Legette, he's got absolutely no one throwing him to the ball over there. But I don't think we talked about Jordan Whittington too much in the run up to the draft. So shout out to him. He's come out. You already mentioned Brian Thomas earlier. He's been fantastic. He's Trevor Lawrence's favorite target, which obviously I don't think means much right now because they're terrible. But
on them later.
And then all the offensive, the tackles have been really good. Zach Frazier has been fantastic.
There's my other guy for looks elite.
All right, cool. Yep. JCP hasn't been playing much.
I don't know if he played. I know he didn't play like the first 3 weeks. He played last week.
I don't know if I've seen anything on Graham Barton. Tyler Guyton. Zach Frazier looks like a dude. So does Cooper. He looks really good too. But Zach Frazier looks like a dude.
No, absolutely. Real quick on Jackson Powers Johnson, he has played 80 offensive snaps so far this season. So just as a shout out to that. Zach Frazier is my last guy in the looks elite category. Joe obviously is going to get a shout out. We've already talked about him a ton. Talisi Fuanga, we've been mentioning him a ton these past couple of weeks. But Zach Frazier is a guy we haven't talked about. He's played 100% of the snaps, 0 penalties allowed, 0 sacks allowed, and as a run blocker, he has a 80.1 PFF run blocking grade, which ranks 6th amongst NFL centers right now. So he looks pretty good. He looks elite at this point. As a guy we really haven't brought up a whole lot, but he's a guy who should be mentioned with those other guys that we've mentioned a ton.
And the main reason for that is when you take a tackle at 5, when you take Joe Alt, right? And then Joe Alt comes out and is good. Okay, duh. You took him at 5. Zach Frazier was the 60th, 65, somewhere right in there. Obviously he went in the second round, I think. So he's come out and he's been fantastic, which the higher rated the higher, although
51st.
I was close. there've been a lot of injuries with these rookie offensive linemen, so that's been tough to watch. And Zach Frazier, when you slot a player in there, much like I mentioned Dominic Pooney earlier, when you slot these players in and they just show up every week and do their job and do it well, it's just really refreshing because offensive line is not an easy position. The defensive linemen, the explosiveness, that is far surpassed the offensive linemen in recent years because those dudes get paid. So I think all these athletic freaks are switching to defense anyway. Shout out to Zach Frazier. He's been awesome.
A guy that was really hard for me not to put in the elite category, and he was so close, like he was riding the fine line, but I didn't want to put too many guys in the elite category. So I just put like top of the great category for me. It has to be Mr. Jared Verse from the LA Rams. He's ranked 5th overall in the league for individual pressure rate at 18%, helping the entire the defensive pressure rate. The Rams lead the league in pressure rate right now at 41.3% of dropbacks through 4 games. Again, 18% for his individual. He leads all rookies with 17 pressures. Through 4 weeks, his 28.8% pass rush win rate ranks only second to a Mr. Potential Defensive Player of the Year front runner and Aiden Hutchinson, who has 18 more pressures than any other edge rusher in football right now. So just, again, 17 pressures for the rookie. Aiden Hutchinson has 18 more than every other person in the league. So just putting that out there. And then just last week, the week before, against the Bears, he had a 50% pass rush win rate. So throwing that out there. Jared Verse looks fantastic. I knew he looked great against the run because that's what he looked like he'd be good at. See how his power worked in the NFL, and it's working. So,
do you know what Jared Verse leads the league in?
What's that?
Missed tackles. He has 11.
Oof. Yeah. So there we go.
So shout out to you not putting him in your elite category, because if you had, I'd have freaking pounded you for it.
Another guy I didn't put in the elite category is another wide receiver. I'm not sure if you wanted to talk about him. It's a very obvious Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. at the looks great category. Didn't put him in the elite category. For me, it's only one reason only. He seems to not get targeted in certain lengths of the game or certain, like the second halves of games. He just kind of disappears. His 4 touchdowns, which tied with Justin Jefferson for leading the league, but his 4 touchdown receptions all in the first quarter. Outside of that, he kind of like goes MIA here and there. Again, looks fantastic, but I'd like to see a little bit more before we bump him up in that category that looks elite. So if we have another check-in here, second half of the year, I'd like to see him in that category, but he has to do a little bit more for me to actually be able to put him there.
The thing about the Cardinals offense, it's very similar. So right now there's a lot of freak out in 49er land about Brandon Ayuk and his production so far. But if you watch the 49ers offense, they are running absolutely nothing for Brandon Ayuk. They're not trying to get him going. They're not trying to. Is that probably Kyle Shanahan punishing him a little bit? Yes, it is. When you compare that to what's happening in New York, where everything is Malik Neighbors oriented, the Cardinals are a little bit of the same. They are not force feeding Marvin Harrison Jr. They are not going out of their way to make sure he gets 8, 10, 12 targets a game. Right. He had 2 touchdowns and like 140 yards in the first quarter the other day and then did nothing the rest of the game. So he is that player. In my opinion, he is that player that you can go out and say, listen, this man needs 12 targets this year. Yeah. I think it will continue to grow. But when you look at what Malik Neighbors is doing, if we have to rank him right now, I got Malik Neighbors at number 1 just because of everything. He is that offense right now.
You have to. Yeah.
And the other thing is again, when you're the first wide receiver off the board, you have to be a little more impressive. When you're the first, Jaden Daniels right now is kicking Caleb Williams' ass. Well, Caleb was number 1. If we could go back to the draft, would the Bears take Jaden Daniels? No, they would take Caleb. They would take Caleb. They would take Caleb. But right now, Jaden's in front of him. It just is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anyone else that you want to praise before you took some negatives there?
The corners have been interesting. Kool-Aid, he's had a couple good games, a couple down games. Obviously, Quinyon Mitchell, he's been okay. I think that we don't have the Sauce Gardner this year. I don't think we have the, Oh man, Denver Broncos number
Pat Surtain.
2. Pat Surtain. We don't have the Surtain this year. We don't have the Sauce Gardner this year. That
Yeah.
just standout shut down guy. But the
Right.
corners have been good. It's tough to play corner in the NFL. Kool-Aid's been good. Well, Kool-Aid's been okay, but I want to see more out of the corners. So I don't have one to shout out super loudly at this point. We'll see if Cooper DeJean can even get on the field going forward.
Yeah,
and I'd like to see a lot more out of Latu, but there is a certain player out there that's been absolutely awful. So are we going negative here, or are we just staying all nice on these rookies?
Just real quick on the corner, just Terron Arnold personally. He's been penalized 9 times in 4 games, which is a ton. And then he's been targeted 25 times for 16 receptions. So
damn.
So he's one where I'm like, I need to see a lot more out of you for a guy that kind of ranked a lot higher. Obviously, I think I had him as corner 5 for me personally. While I slowly pull that up on the side of me, I had him ranked at corner 3. Excuse me. Corner 5 was Nate Wiggins. So a guy who's ranked that high, I expect a little bit more out of him. But again, 25 times, 16 receptions in 4 games. He clearly has flashes, and he clearly looks good at points. But that's a lot. And if you put stock in the PFF grade, 47.6 up to this point. So not sure how much you're going to get there. And it's not just going to be like, well, what about the run coverage? Well, like the run grade. Well, I know he's been pretty decent in the run. So yeah, you can go negative because there's a certain tackle, obviously, that I want to go ahead and cover for the negativity spot. So,
you know who's been terrible and has done absolutely nothing for his team?
Who's that?
Michael Penix.
That's not fair, man. Go on, you can't control that.
Are you going to talk about Guyton? Is that who you want to? Because so we could talk about tackles for a second. I won't focus on Guyton. J.C. Latham has not been great.
You're right, absolutely.
But again, he's in Tennessee, so I'm not exactly sure what was expected out of that situation. Will Levis is all over the place. I don't know how you're supposed to hold your blocks, and you give up pressures and you give up sacks. Will Levis is way over here where the hell he's not supposed to be. There's a blocking scheme for a reason. You got to play quarterback within that blocking scheme.
Yeah, but the thing is when I'm watching J.C. Latham and I'm watching how he's playing in tape, he obviously came out as a tackle. That was how he came out. And I told you, I think he's a guard. I don't think this guy's a tackle at all. And then you draft him as high as you did as a tackle, and he's looked this bad. It's like, for me personally, I want to point the finger and be like, I told you, not to you, but like to, Tennessee Titans, like, I told you so. They should have listened to me. They hit me up and I told them, and they didn't listen to me. And I don't know what's going on there, but I was not the biggest fan. I was not the biggest fan of Latham, and especially you move him sides as well. So I'm not a fan of that personally. Not look great. Again, I thought he was more of a guard than a tackle. I love offensive lineman tape. That's like my shit. And there's certain guys that I love to hang my hat on and be like, hey, I was kind of right about this one. And J.C. Latham so far is like, hey, I told you this motherfucker is probably a guard, not a tackle. And especially with this next guy as well. Unless you have another tackle you want to talk about, I said that this guy is not going to translate the best. So Latham was my tackle 6, by the way, if he was a tackle, and I still put him down as a guard. He was my second highest rated guard in my tackle spots. But yeah, 6 spot.
I mean,
did you have anyone else?
No, I mean, some of these guys have been really bad. Yeah. I mean, Amarius Mims has not been good.
He's definitely struggled.
Jordan Morgan.
He got drafted high, but we knew that Amarius Mims was going to struggle, being so raw coming out too. He might come into his own, but very, very raw guy with every bit of athleticism that you can count on with flashes.
Yeah, Jordan Morgan has not been that good. He's been hurt.
I wasn't high on him.
The guy the Chiefs took, he's got a funky name.
Oh, Kingsley Suamataia. Yeah, I wasn't high on him either. They took him super high.
I know you're going to go on a rant on this Cowboys thing. So, before you go there, you got anyone on the defensive side?
Defense side of the ball that looks bad. We
could talk about something Dallas related, not your player, just name sake.
You're good. Go ahead.
Dallas Turner has not been good. We talked about that. There was teams mocking him, and like there was mocks with him in the top 8-10. We're like, no. Latu's number one. He's had like 14 pressures in the last 2 weeks. He's getting close to breaking out. But another guy I had really high who's not doing much of shit, doesn't look very good, is Chop Robinson.
I was just looking him up. Yeah,
his run grade is absolutely terrible.
To be fair, we knew Chop was going to be a bad run. Like he's a pass rush specialist. If you're using him on the run, you might have to look at yourself a little different because that's never what Chop is ever going to be.
And he's gotten a pressure in every game, and he's a part-time player. So if you're only putting him on the field for a handful of snaps and he's going to get a pressure, that's good. But it's just his explosiveness. You'd think he would bring more to the table. So shout out. I have one more loser. I have one more rookie loser.
Go ahead.
And I'm going to go with a quarterback, and I'm going to say JJ McCarthy because it's not good what's happening for him in Minnesota right now, man. I'm right there with you. Yep. Baker Mayfield got a 3-year, $100 million contract. That's got Sam Darnold written all over it, dude. If he keeps playing like this, 3-year, $100 million, and now your JJ McCarthy's on his 5th-year option. By the time JJ, now trust me, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. But oh boy, man, if Sam the man keeps doing what he's doing, it's going to be a tough decision for them in the offseason.
It's gonna be fun at least to have the conversation for us. So, last guy obviously on the looks bad. I said Terron Arnold, was a guy that needs to see improvement, but he's not played well. Tyler Guyton, I mentioned it. He just looks bad. At the end of the day, he looks bad. We had the conversation pre-draft process, or it was during the draft, excuse me. Who is the guy that you would not want to see right here? And I was like, Guyton is probably the last guy I want to see. And of course, who would we go with? And I tried to have a little bit of faith because the Cowboys draft offensive lineman, but I really wasn't a huge fan, especially he's a tackle. I said he's probably a guard. And then you move him to the other side as well, to the left tackle position. It's so hard to see. A guy who is winning off of raw athleticism, but didn't really have a whole lot of flashes. He currently ranks 81st among offensive tackles with an overall PFF grade of 52.7. He's allowed 4 sacks in 4 games, 1 quarterback hit, 6 quarterback hurries through 269 snaps. Also, committing 7 fucking penalties. So I don't know what the fuck is going on there. But and then he had the audacity to criticize the refs afterwards. Shut the fuck up. I don't get it. It's your fault. You dumb fuck. You have like 4 false starts. That's your fault. I don't know what we're talking about. If we're talking about like the first game of the season and we're looking at the Baltimore Ravens and we're looking at Ronnie Stanley not being able to keep his fucking waist, where the center is, that's his fault. And he should be able to do that and be like, oh, like the refs were kind of picking on me for it, but other guys, they were doing it too. Okay, sure, maybe. I understand it. Tyler Guyton, bro, you've played 4 games in the NFL. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're a completely raw prospect, and it clearly shows. And maybe just be quiet and say, yeah, I have 7 penalties and 4 sacks, and I look like shit in every single fucking game. So, yeah, let's relax a little bit. So that's my feelings on Guyton. Obviously, I want to see him succeed being from the Cowboys, but there's a pretty big portion of me that loves to be correct, just like Drew does. And I love to be right, And when I'm right about something, it makes me feel really good. So for me, it's a win-win situation where if he's good, it's good for the Cowboys. But if he's bad, it's good for me because then I get to talk shit about it and that I was right. So that's my last section on these rookies and our last section for week 4 overall.
I think the tough part for me about Guyton's performance on Thursday was it was coming against Kayvon Thibodeaux.
Yeah,
like that's not Aiden Hutchinson out there. That's Thibodeaux who came into the league with a lot of fanfare
next week. By the way,
yeah, man, I just
who made Joe Alt look bad, but he was also like the top ranked tackle, coming into that week, and then all of a sudden he made him look like not dog shit, but he made him look bad, and that's TJ Watt, and now you have Tyler Guyton, and he's just gonna fucking eat him up, which our other tackle fucking sucks anyway. So go ahead.
going back to a little positivity off of the suicide ledge for Cowboys fans, maybe a corner that we were a little wrong about just in terms of maybe having him the 5th or 6th best, but Nate Wiggins has looked really, really good. It's too bad that he keeps dropping fucking interceptions. I think he has
corner, dude.
I know, but I think he has like 3 drops, but he got the start. He had a great coverage grade, over 80 or something. I didn't write it down because I wasn't sure I'd get to him, but I just know that he keeps dropping interceptions. So shout out to Nate. He's a little guy, but I like to see the players that we scout really hard ball out. And it was really tough to put the corners together this offseason. And
especially his biggest knock being he's light, he's small, he's light, and but luckily he's held up. He's only allowed 6 receptions so far in the year, which is pretty good when you look at 16 receptions allowed for Terrion Arnold. So yeah, shout out to him, man, because that's pretty awesome. Again, even if we scout someone hard or we don't look at someone in a positive light at first, if they succeed, we benefit as the fans to be able to watch it at the end of the day, and we like to talk about it.
The one thing I'll say, just to try to get you off your rant, make you feel a little better, is it's not like you took Tyler Guyton and there was a stud tackle that went a couple picks after, Yeah. Oh, and shout out this, please hold. We are holding and we are liking it. I want to, because I have talked so much shit on this man's name, so I am going to give him a shout out where it's due. If I can even find the damn guy, because he's so far down on the list. There he is, way down there at the bottom. Your boy Mozzie Smith. He had an excellent run blocking grade this past week against whoever the Giants played at running back and Daniel Jones. He had a couple big tackles and finally looked like an NFL player. So shout out to Mozzie Smith.
Yep, absolutely. At least for 1 week.
Still ranked 35.7 overall, the 121st best defensive tackle in the league, but he finally had a good game, which is more than I could say for like Tyree Wilson of the Raiders.
Yeah, that's true.